Welcome to the Truth in the Turn podcast. I'm your host, Zach Arnold, alongside Austin Leak, and our podcast will dive into the truth of NASCAR and to break into some of the narratives within the sport. Today, we are talking to Cameron Richardson, a talented writer who works at the NASCAR digital scene.
And you make sure you guys give us a follow, Truth in the Turn, on Instagram and Facebook.
Hey,
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm good.
Well, thank you for joining our podcast. This is our first ever episode, so just bear with us.
Yep, all good.
I want to give you a little bit to introduce yourself and tell me about what made you a NASCAR fan.
My name is Cameron Richardson. I currently work at NASCAR Digital Media on the editorial team. So all the content you see on NASCAR.com is written and programmed by me and a team of about 10 of us. I became a NASCAR fan essentially from my parents tell me from the time I was born, like watching, Daytona 500 as a baby. Apparently, I was hooked on it, and from going to my first race when I was four, I just had a love for it that never faded away. Went to Here's some old school. I was going to night races at Auto Club when that was still going on, and it just really never faded away. And so when I started doing sports journalism in college, um, my school had never done coverage of NASCAR before, so I was actually one of the first to do it at NAU, Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. And we ended up building a team, and they still keep covering NASCAR now, even after I've graduated. But yeah, that's essentially my start in NASCAR was just, watching races as an infant. That's really where it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what made you want to actually work for NASCAR and go through that whole process?
Well, yeah. I wanted to cover sports, obviously, after I graduated from college. Didn't know what that path looked like after. I was essentially think I was just gonna have myself be thrown into the wild after graduation. And luckily, I saw this link put on or this application put on LinkedIn, and it was for a NASCAR, digital position. And I was just gonna be like, all right, I'll apply, see what happens, but there's no way I'm getting a job straight out of college. So I apply, a couple weeks goes by, I get an email from my now current manager on a bike ride. And I remember specifically because I was going downhill and I had my phone on the stand on
Yeah.
my bike. So I'm looking at it most of the time. And I get the email back that says interview, requested, or, let's do an interview. I'm literally slamming my brakes, almost crashed my bike. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like so excited, just out of my mind that I even got a chance to interview. We do the interview. Another couple weeks goes by. I graduate. I get a second interview with our editor in chief, and that was a little intimidating, but it's funny now because he's like the funniest, coolest boss I, I could ever ask for. But it was really intimidating. And then he asked, he's like, "Can you move to Charlotte?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I'm from Los Angeles, so it was gonna be a tough cross country flight to make. I had to leave a lot of my stuff behind and buy all new stuff just because there we didn't have, options to just go and drive all this time with all of our schedules and whatnot. But yeah, after I got back from vacation, I got a call from NASCAR's HR department, and they said you got the job. And this was at like 7:15 in the morning because I was still living in LA, and they called me in the morning on the East Coast still, and just like I didn't know how to react at first because it was so early in the morning. But just hearing that, and then immediately it was me and my brother only. My dad was at work, my mom was at my grandmother's house, so it was just me and my brother celebrating. And I called my mother and told her I got the job, and just totally elation. Just crazy that how things ended up because I had to take a fifth year at college because COVID really screwed things up for me. So I was supposed to graduate in 2021. And it's just funny how things play out because I would not be here, had I not taken that extra year.
Yeah, well, congratulations. I've been following your work and I've seen you at the track multiple
Yep.
times. You do an amazing
Thank
job.
you.
So
Yep.
keep
Thank
that
you.
up. And so today, a couple more questions. Over the last few years, with the time you've worked in the sport, what do you think has been the largest factor in NASCAR's popularity rising?
I would say I don't know, they or we, which was the better term for this, but since I would say the return, being one of the first sports to return during COVID, I think really helped. I think it helped them become active. I think it introduced them to a lot more people than what they probably expected, given that most of those sports didn't return until the fall. Baseball started like a couple months after. But I think it's some of that ground has held on, in my opinion. And since I started, what I've noticed is our social team being as young as they are, because they're all, around my age, and they're really in tune with any social trend that goes on, especially now when we got a new social media manager. You see just like from Homestead, like Carson Hocevar doing uh Grand Theft Auto remake essentially. Like just stuff like that all gets younger people excited. And so when you can tap into that audience, that just unlocks so much. And them really being active on TikTok, on Instagram Reels, on Twitter, just that helps drive it so much more than what I think anybody anticipated. And now they just have to continue to do that. And people will flock over, naturally.
Yeah, I agree, and especially with the edits you guys have been putting out, some of these like transitions are so clean and everything.
Yeah. Ivy Daniel, just absolute wizard at it, man. So good.
All right, so my next question is about the Netflix series that NASCAR came out a year ago called NASCAR Full Speed. What were your reactions to this series, and how do you think it helped grow the NASCAR fan base?
It was so weird because I had this like out of body experience when I watched it because I didn't get like a teaser of it or anything beforehand. I could only watch it when everyone else could, and so seeing the introduction for it, I'm like I nearly teared up because I never expected this sport to be presented in this way and be taken seriously like this. You see, obviously movies have been made that parody NASCAR. I still say Cars is the most accurate, fairly depicted film involving any type of NASCAR related things. I'm not the biggest fan of Talladega Nights. Okay, I love the comedy outside of it, but when they go to the track, I'm like, this doesn't work for me. But for when it comes to full speed, I think just you know, the drivers are so closed off and they've been for a long time. But seeing like behind the scenes of Ross Chastain and getting to know the drivers on a more, personal level, they become more personable to the audience. And so, seeing what Christopher Bell went through, the access they had to get into his RV after he lost the championship and had his brake rotor failure in 2023. Just getting that access I think was essential because I know we get the Christopher Bell TV interview after, and it's like, well, we're frustrated, but then you see it play out after the fact. And so just seeing that I think really helps fan base, drivers gain more fans. I think Christopher Bell really took advantage of that because he really went from this guy that was, pretty just stoic, just whatever, just not really talking much in, interviews when he's at the track, doesn't really, I don't know if he just never liked the media or just wasn't, comfortable yet. But then a switch flipped after that because now Christopher Bell is one of the best drivers to talk to in the sport, I think. I think that series really helped him, and hopefully he'll be featured more in season two. Obviously, it won't end well for him, as we saw the end of last year, but I think it really helped him develop into to become more comfortable speaking. And I hope whatever we get out of season two coming up, hopefully it unlocks more abilities for drivers to speak more.
Agree. And do you think there's anything NASCAR needs to do to promote the second season more than they did the first one?
I would like to see more ads for it. I would like a date to drop for it. Hopefully we announce that soon. But yeah, just the January release was really good last year. It's not, obviously it's not probably not the best to have it come out mid-season, but it is what it is. Well, everyone's still gonna tune in no matter what. Whoops, my bad.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's also another thing with the whole Netflix series because you get to see the personal aspect of these drivers, and they just see them get in the car and drive around, but you get to see the personal aspect with their families, and like Tyler Reddick with his kid and his wife. But following into our next question, over the last decade, we've seen a lot of like celebrities at the track. Has there been like a particular favorite that you've met or seen at the track?
Not that I've met because I'm so locked in working wise. Of course, I've always wanted to be like, man, I would love to get a picture with so and so, but not, I've never had a chance to just go up and do it. But I mean, recently I was in Atlanta and we had, I don't know if you guys know the comedian Roy Wood Jr. was there. That was really awesome to see. He did a great segment on his show about Raja Caruth and meeting him and all that. And then we had Big Boy from Outkast was also there. So just seeing that was really awesome. Luckily I know the person that ends up getting all these people here, and she works just incredibly hard to get all these people here. At Homestead was really interesting because we had like streamers there. There were a ton of like live streamers there. Um, like Puerto Rican artists were there. Like just seeing the amount of people that will show up to the track. Obviously there's probably some incentive that goes with it, but you know, it's never really publicized outside of the Daytona 500, the who's who at the track. But now that we're seeing celebrities, other athletes come out and to really any track, and I would think part of that is part of, people finally learning that pit crews come from, past athletes, athletes that couldn't make it big in the NFL, they go, NASCAR will go to these pro days and say like, hey, can we, just scout too? They're scouting like NFL teams do for the NFL draft. So it's just cool to see that we're tapping into that crossover potential of, hey, these guys are former athletes and they're true athletes on pit road. That's probably tougher than actually driving the race car, honestly. Like that's, especially if you watch something like Homestead with a narrow pit road, it's really interesting to watch. But yeah, I've never had a full interaction with a celebrity, but I mean, just the amount really versus who it is, the amount of people that will show up to the track now is really astonishing to see.
Yeah, it is, and I think it would be a good idea to get a pit crew member on here who was a former athlete and interview them about their whole experience in NASCAR and joining the sport.
Hmm.
But thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
I
man.
appreciate your insight.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
And I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Yep. Have a good night, you guys.
Thank you. That was some great insight we got from Cameron. Austin, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, I think personally, his talking about the COVID thing was important because I think COVID really did bring people back to NASCAR because there was nothing else to watch at that time. Almost every sport, like NBA, hockey, everything was closed at that point. So you had NASCARs on like Tuesdays, I believe a couple of Thursdays. And personally, I remember my own experience during that time. I was really into NASCAR. I kind of fallen a little bit out of it. And I think that was huge for me and a lot of people because they were really drawing a lot of viewers. And then you had the new car, the next gen car, come out like about 2 years later. And I think I got people really invested into NASCAR again because there were so many different winners, and it wasn't just like the usual winners all the time. You had guys that usually run like 20th position winning races. So I think that brought a lot of people back into NASCAR. And then you had some more of these celebrities that come to the track. So I really think NASCAR was kind of evolving again, and it kind of leads me to you. What do you think that was valuable from what he said?
Yeah, well, I definitely agree from the whole COVID situation. One of my best friends, his name's Luke. He wasn't that big into NASCAR in 2020, and since then he's been a diehard fan. He watches every race. We talk every single race together. So it just highlights the importance of that comeback for NASCAR, being the first sport back to live action. It was really important. And to think about the celebrities that come to the sport, one of my favorite celebrities that I've seen at a race is Julian Edelman. He was a wide receiver for the Patriots. I'm from Boston, so I was a Patriots fan. He was at the Daytona 500 in 2019, and I thought that was pretty special.
Yeah, it definitely sounds special. I mean, also another thing that we talked about was with the Netflix series. I really do think that was a huge part of the rise of NASCAR. And with it coming out again this year, not sure the exact date, but that'll be pretty exciting. I think there was a lot of events that were happening last year in the playoffs, and if they keep consistently having that, more people will want to watch, more people be more invested in the sport, and it won't just be like, left turn, as they always say. It'll be more about their personal stories and also like deep diving into how they got to their point in the sport nowadays. And also, the personal side of it is very important, I think, because you get to see their own story and not just them racing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that NASCAR Full Speed on Netflix was an amazing way to promote the sport. Because not only, like Cameron said, it was a way to give casual fans a way to see into the driver's life, especially if your favorite driver was one of the drivers in the show. You're able to see what they do after the race, before the race, throughout the race week. Like I remember there was a clip in the show where Denny Hamlin was dropping off his daughters at school at 7 in the morning, and he went to the race shop. And that's not something you see every day from a football player or a basketball player. So it was really special to be able to see the behind the scenes of these NASCAR drivers, especially when they were going through a pretty pressure-filled time of the NASCAR playoffs and trying to win the championship.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys give us a follow on Instagram and Facebook, and also our YouTube, Truth in the Turn. We'll see you on the next one.
See ya.